All right, so check this out. Someone finally did the math on ransomware operators. 16,699 leak site posts, 200 groups, and 24 months of data. The conclusion is almost insulting in how obvious it is. So it turns out ransomware crews work office hours. They take weekends off, and every October, they go into overdrive. Now, this isn't just one gang, it's the whole ecosystem. BlackCat, Lockbit successors, Akira, Play, Keylin, Ransom Hub, and a very long list of smaller crews. This research covered 200 distinct operations dumping victim names on leak sites between 2023 and 2025. This data set captures the public-facing side of extortion, the moment a victim refuses to pay and their data gets leaked online. So this is the really interesting part here, okay? 84% of those posts land Monday through Friday. Now, the peak window is European afternoon hours, which lines up with operators based in Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine clocking in after lunch. Weekend posting also just drops off a cliff. So it turns out these aren't nocturnal hackers in hoodies. They're salaried affiliates running a business operation. And here's some other interesting details here. It seems the month of October spikes every year. Why? Well, I suspect it's because of end-of-year quota pressure right before the holidays. They really want to hit you where it hurts, and the fourth quarter allows them to really crank up the pressure to pay. And this is kind of interesting to note too. Some analysts actually point to back-to-school IT churn leaving gaps. So it might look like ransomware operators have carpool duty too. So for defenders, we can actually do something with this information here, okay? Your highest risk windows are Tuesday through Thursday afternoons UTC and the entire month of October. So staff your SOC accordingly. Yeah, you don't want to put a tier 1 analyst solo on a Wednesday at 2 p.m. Kiev time. Probably not a good idea if you want to keep them sane. Also, pre-stage your incident response retainers before October. And you might want to consider running your tabletop exercises soon, not like in January, okay? All right, let's move on to our next story. Russia's FSB is claiming that foreign intelligence services compromised the smartphones of senior Russian officials and turned them into pocket surveillance kits. The agency went public this week with the accusation. It did not, however, bring much evidence, okay? So here's what the FSB is alleging. Foreign spy agencies, unnamed, but you can guess the short list, supposedly planted malware on the mobile devices of high-ranking Russian officials. That malware let operators pull data off the phones, listen quietly in on conversations, and activate cameras and microphones to spy on whoever was in the room. This is frankly just standard mobile implant behavior. Think Pegasus class style capabilities. The kind of toolkit that NSO, Intellexa, and a handful of state-built equivalents have been shipping for years. This is also worth bringing up because this goes way beyond Moscow's internal politics. If the FSB is telling the truth, it confirms what mobile security researchers have been saying for a decade. You see, senior officials carry consumer hardware. They install consumer apps and click consumer links. A zero-click exploit chain doesn't care whose phone it lands on. If the FSB is lying or exaggerating, that's also useful information here because it suggests the Kremlin is preparing the ground for a crackdown, a purge, or a new round of import restrictions on Western devices. Now, when it comes to evidence here, there's really not much, okay? No indicators of compromise, no malware samples, no named victims, no named attackers, no timeline. All it was just a statement. And you see, in the past, we had groups like Citizen Lab and Amnesty Security Lab publishing forensic reports on these Russian targets, journalists and mostly opposition figures. And the FSB claim really flips the direction and offers none of that same rigor, okay? Now, what's coming up might get really interesting here, okay? Watch Russia to push officials onto domestic hardware and the Russian homegrown Aurora OS. Watch for new restrictions on iPhones inside governments across the world. So the takeaway here is, folks, if you handle sensitive work and you know who you are, assume your phone is the softest target that you own and act accordingly. All right, last story of the day, folks. Red Hat's official NPM channel is currently shipping malware. It's not a typo, you heard me right. The Red Hat Cloud Services account, the legitimate publishing channel for the packages that run Red Hat Enterprise Linux and OpenShift tooling, got compromised. You see, attackers push malicious updates into dozens of packages that thousands of developers install without thinking twice. And here's how it works, okay? The backdoored packages, things like front-end components, RBAC client, and Insight Common TypeScript, carry a credential stealer that fires on a pre-install hook. So the second you run NPM install, it's already running. It also wires itself into Node's startup script so it sticks around long after the install finishes. Ultimately, it scrapes your environment variables, your SSH keys, your AWS tokens, your Kubernetes configs, and then ships them off to a command and control server off in God knows who where. Anyways, Microsoft's team caught this campaign and tagged it Miasma, which frankly I think is a pretty cool name. And moving on, let's kind of talk about why this kind of stings, okay? This attack method weaponizes the exact thing that we've been telling developers to trust. You know, pull from the official scope, check the publisher, and you're supposed to be safe, right? Not so much. Yeah, so if your CI pipeline that pulls the poison package, the attacker isn't walking off with one laptop secrets. They're getting your entire build system, your cloud, your production clusters. That's how a single bad dependency becomes a full environment compromise. Now, reports show that the compromise windows ran from late May to early June. So it's a very narrow window, but it's live right now, folks. Red Hat has revoked the stolen keys and published clean versions, which is the right call, but it's on you to actually pull them. So here's your homework, folks, okay? Grep your log files for anything in the Red Hat Cloud Services scope, and if it's there, assume exposure, okay? Rotate every credential those machines could reach and rebuild your pipelines off of the clean versions. In the end, folks, there's really a bigger lesson to be learned here, okay? Official never meant safe. It just felt that way. Because seriously, when was the last time you actually looked at what NPM was dragging into your build box? Yeah. All right, folks. Well, that's it for today. This is Andy Thompson signing off.